take this big loop and you push it 1, 2, 3, 4. Good to go. Yeah, okay, so if you do it any less or more, you're gonna have a mess.
Yeah.
Just take your time, is what I'd recommend. I always grab my leader and I'm pulling on it. You guys see this? Straightening it out a little bit, it makes things much easier. We'll do this once we get it set up. And then on this knot, it's really important that you push your fly line through and should come up directly through it. So it's a handshake knot rather than a pinch. And I'll show you what it looks like. You can tell by just looking at the knot. You see how those two knots are handshaking? Like this? If it's wrong, then what you'll see is you get a double over in the front of it on your leader. Okay, so on my 9-weight, I'm gonna run a little bigger crab. I have 2s and 4s in the Colbys. I'm gonna run a 2 on my 9 and okay, end of the leader. 1 overhand knot, you guys, just like this, okay? Eyelet
to bring all shrimp.
1 eyelet. We're gonna go through this. Okay, and this is how you get a nice low profile loop or small loop. So I'm gonna take this, guys, and I'm gonna cinch it down to a pretty small loop, just like this, okay? You see how small that is? And then what I like to do, see how small that is, guys? And I'll pinch it down. And it just needs to be big enough where you get that tippet back through. Pinch it.
Someone's
1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm gonna come back up through that little bitty loop that I created in the middle, just like that, okay? Now what I'll do is I'm gonna hang on to this, I'm gonna tease everything down towards my fly, like that. You see how I kind of teased it down with my tooth? And from there, pull hard, really low profile, nice little non-slip. This is why you don't want a big loop, is if your loop is large enough to hook over the top of your eye, that's the only issue, right? And so other than that, I don't really care how big your loops are, but if they're large and you have like eyes that aren't very low profile, it'll end up hooking over that eye, and then that is what you don't want. Yeah.
This is your 8-weight. So shrimp.
Shrimp, crab, whatever you want, something light. I'm gonna put a bead chain bug on there that I made. I want to catch a fish on a bug that I made this trip, and this is the one I think is gonna get it done. Shrimp? Yeah, just a little shrimp pattern there. Okay. Overhand knot, guys. It's a simple single overhand. We go through our eyelet, and then we'll come back up through that big loop that we created. Okay. Doesn't matter which way, that way or that way. It doesn't matter. So from here you got a big loop, and what I want to do is tease this sucker down. Keep teasing it. That's a pretty small loop right about there. Okay,
And that's the bottom line you're pulling to tease that.
I'm pulling both of them. Yeah. And sometimes, you pull on this one, it won't move. You pull on this one, and it'll start to move. So just kind of tease them both, and then pinch it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what we're gonna do, guys, is that little loop that we created at the top, that little bitty loop, we're gonna come right up through that sucker, just like that.
Doesn't matter which way you go through that.
Doesn't matter, no, not one bit. And then at that point, this is kind of where the secret sauce is. I'm gonna grab my leader, and I'm gonna hang on to this and see how I'm teasing it down towards the fly. We're gonna wet it.
So that's a different knot than you were trying before.
This is just the non-slip monoloop. This is what you'll use for crabs or shrimp. Okay? Like that. And then that's a pretty small profile loop on there as well. That's about as big as I will make one, honestly. Because look at this. If it were any bigger of that knot, it would hook up on that eye or something like that, right? So that's the big thing. That loop just has got to be low profile enough where it doesn't, cast and hang up on one of those eyes or something like that. So 8-weight style. It's about 4 feet, 3.5. Perfection loop at the top. 1. I'm gonna do another one closer to me. Okay. And then the third one that splits the two. Right in between those two.
I get that, and then I do something wrong.
So from this, you're gonna push this first knot to the second one, okay? Or what I like to do is grab it with some hemos. Don't fray your line. But grab it with the hemos and pull it through just like this. And then this is my favorite thing to do is I'll take some pliers that are just like big enough to get in there, like this. Stretch it down. And pull. That knot is not going anywhere, guys. So non-slip mono, or perfection loop, excuse me. So perfection loop at the top.
That's on 60. Yeah.
Nice. It's all about tension and pressure when you get to it, you know. So again, fly line through, pinch and come up top to the top.
That pinching is just a convenience, right? You could just take the end of the line and
Yeah, you could. Nice handshake knot, guys.
Clever.
But you'd see, so I got about, pull that 4 feet. I'll set one up a little easier this first time.
So you'll use 0 mono on this trip. Everything you're doing is fluoro.
Yep. And I'm changing my mind again here. I'm just gonna go 60, 30, 60. I told you guys to do that yesterday for a simple leader, okay? So from here, what I'm gonna do is overlap these two and I'm gonna do a blood knot here, okay? So, 1, 2, 3, let's try 4.
They fall apart quicker with only three reps.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, let me recount those. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm gonna get it going, started like this, wet it, and pull. You guys see how those tags are opposite?
Yeah.
You know your knot's good. Both tags are poking out one side, or that's the only reason why I really do love this knot. You could use a triple surgeons here if you'd like to. I would personally like to tie a triple surgeons in one of these and see if we can break one a little easier than the other. From my experience, I do like the blood knot better than the triple triple or double surgeons knot. Okay, so now I have a nice piece of 30-pound break off strength here. I'm not worried about losing my finger and all that stuff at this point. When you start going 40, 50 pounds straight, you guys, if that fly line were to wrap on your toe or your finger or something like that, it's gonna pull all your, or on your guides, it's gonna completely pull your entire rod apart and all your guides and that kind of stuff if you're using heavy tippet. When you have like a 30-pound break off strength, it'll usually break your fly before any of that terminal stuff starts to fail on you. So at this point, I did about 3.5 feet of the first one, so let's do like 3 feet of the next one. I like to keep it a little shorter, okay? So 3 feet.
You're doing 3 feet of the break off piece?
Yeah. Okay, 60, 30, 60. Okay, we're gonna keep this tarpon leader super simple. Got about a 4-foot piece here. The way I measure it is I go right titty to left hand. Okay, or yeah, just right titty to left hand. The next piece is gonna go center chest to left hand. Okay, so just a little smaller. And then from here, all you need is about a foot and a half of that shock tippet. And I'm gonna use the same knot, a blood knot again. It cinched pretty well right there. If it didn't, you know, we would be looking for other options here. So 60 pound, we're gonna overlap them, guys, just like that. Okay, all we're doing is laying them over, just like that. Okay, I'm gonna pinch it with this top hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna seat it right in that little V that I was pinching. Okay, got it here. Gonna go 4 this way. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you guys see how this one's coming out this way. I'm gonna poke this one in the opposite. Okay, we'll tease them down a little bit, get them started, and make sure. And this is another thing I would be cautious of, you guys. I usually use my hands, but you're gonna start ripping your hands apart here. So use your wrist if you can. So what I'm talking about is this, like wrap it around your wrist here and then here. And then what I like to do is wet it, and then you can just move your hands apart like that. And it's not gonna pinch your fingers and cut you nearly as bad. We got a good knot right there, guys, coming off both tags. And all we need is about 1.5 feet. We'll go a little longer because I'm gonna make a shitty knot first, I'm sure. Okay, so we got about 2 feet. I'm gonna use probably that much on my knot here. So for tarpon, I'm gonna go with the black and purple.
For snook, you go tan.
Well, your guide will tell you. And actually, you know, I'm gonna tell you tan one because I really like that
I
bug.
use it.
You guys, 2 overhands this time. 1, 2.
Is that make it stronger? Is that why you're doing that?
See the figure 8 I just created? So if you do the double, then as you cinch it, it'll create that figure 8, okay? Feed this through. We're gonna chase the leader exactly back how it came through the figure 8, so nice and flat or parallel with it, okay? Go up through this one. And we're gonna go down through this one. So same kind of principle here, is I'm gonna tease this figure 8 down, you guys. And if I pull on the top tag, it's gonna tease it down. You don't want it to wrap over the eyes, so that's about as small as I can get it.
Plus you have, yeah.
So that's about as small as I can get it, or cinch down to the knot. And then from here, all it is 1 overhand knot. Don't complicate this, but your knot needs to include your main line, okay? So from here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go all the way around it. Like this. Okay, see how I captured that main line in there?
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna come just right through it. So all that is an overhand knot. I contained them all that time. I went around both. And I'm gonna tease this down, you guys. Same thing that you did with that hermit bug. So I kind of teased it way down near that figure 8. That's our stopping point, okay? We're gonna wet it. Where's my pliers? Oh, okay, wet it and separate my hands. Pretty small. Homer Rhodes, improved Homer Rhodes knot, or whatever the heck you call it.
So they do come together.
Yeah, and that overhand knot, you guys, wherever that overhand knot at the top is how big your loop is going to be. So if you try to cinch them before you really tease that top overhand down,
Hey.
you're going to have a really large loop there. But it's going to be about a 6-7 foot leader. At 6 feet there, got an extra foot. From my experience, guys, that's what you know the guides will want. It may be totally different when you get out on the boat.
And that was 60, 30, 60?
60, 30, 60. Let's keep it simple. If you want to do it really simple, just put 6 feet of 30 with a little shot of
60 at the end.
yeah, 60 at the end. Okay, it's not going to probably cast as great, but if you're out there and extra blood knot means that much is going to take you 10 minutes, just run straight 30. You know. Does that help, guys?
Yeah.
I'll walk every one of you guys through it. I'll watch your knots and all that stuff, but here to help, man. So let me know how I can, guys.
Awesome.
The boat with your guide is you want to establish direction. Okay, so what I always do is I'm going to look right at the front of the boat, put it back in my guide and say 12 o'clock, and he'll say, yes, 12 o'clock. And that means that the front of the boat for the rest of the day is going to be 12 o'clock. Okay, and it shouldn't change as you're moving around. The other thing that I like to do is everything is measured in meters, and it's 5 meters, 10 meters, or 15 meters are the things that you're not going to hear anything probably in between. And 5 meters is a short shot, or 10 meters is a long shot, and 15 meters as far as you can throw the fly. And usually 15 meters is not going to be 15 meters. It's going to be more further. That's what it means, right? So one of the things I'll show you is there's never a bait fish that flees to the surface, right, to get away from one of these things. And so when the tarpon is following your bug, one of the things that you really want to do is keep that rod tip down. If you lift the fly rod tip, it's called a trout set, and that fly will swim up in the column, and they know instantly any tarpon is going to turn away and then kind of take off from you. But if you keep that rod tip down and you keep stripping, you guys, it's going to keep that fly looking like it's a natural bait fish. And a lot of times they'll try to eat it 2-3 times before they actually get it. And that's where you'll really learn not to trout set, is when you get that first fish that just misses it a few times. You keep that fish swimming, and then they eat. Hang on tight to that now. Okay, so the biggest thing that I can show you guys is when you are stripping your bait fish, right? This is the number one thing I think about. Rather than stripping here, where it's nice and natural, get your hand out front, like this, okay? And I want you stripping out here. And what that allows you to do, hang on tight, is when we still have slack, right? We're picking up that slack, I'm gonna pull until I'm tight, okay? You feel how I'm tight, or you can see the line? Now this is when we're gonna set the hook, and the hook set is this, right there. You see how I just pulled this hand from there to there? That's gonna apply a lot of pressure to that fish. And Farron, how much pressure are you hanging on to? It's quite a bit.
If you kept this way, my wrist would
It's
do certain
it's
things.
quite a bit. So the other thing that I think about, you guys, is when I come tight, feel the fish, I pull in tight, I'm not thinking about trying to pick up all this slack or, you know, strip again or anything like that. I am gonna hold the fish, and you are gonna hold the full weight of the fish until you can't really hold it anymore. And then you're gonna let the line slide, and then this is where
Careful.
rod tip position really makes a big difference, okay? Farron, do you feel the difference of that versus this to you?
Yeah.
Should be day and night, right?
Yep.
So if your rod tip is bending, you guys, you're not putting nearly as much pressure as if you're straight lining a fish, okay? And so what I always tell myself is, rather than lifting and bending the tip of the rod like this, now you have no pressure, right?
I can't feel it.
You can't even feel that. So if you're bending the tip of the rod, not the butt of the rod, you guys are actually still not putting any pressure at all. Look at this. How much pressure do you think I have, Rob, on that fly? Go grab that thing and hang on to it real quick.
Nothing.
Watch this.
Just feel this.
So you're fishing wrong over like
There's not even a pound of pressure there.
You didn't even put the
Right?
pressure, it was part of it.
And so you guys, this tip of the rod is not what we want to bend if you want to keep fish on, okay? What we're after is we are going to strip, we're going to put the fly in the fish, and then do you see how I'm bending the bottom part of my rod? See how much more pressure, Rob, that I have? And that's still probably only 5 pounds of pressure right there, right? It's not to the point where you're going to bring 30-pound or 20-pound tensile strength. So what you guys will hear is they say bow to the tarpon, right? When a big fish comes out of the water, the one analogy that I really like to use is think about like a little kid in a swimming pool, right? They can lift their parents up when they're underwater. But once they get to the surface, you feel the full weight of that, adult, and the kids can't usually lift them. Same thing with a big, tarpon or any other fish. If they're down deep, you guys can pull as hard as you want on them almost. You can almost straight line them, and you're not putting nearly as much pressure as if that fish comes up to the surface. Let's call it a 100-pound fish, right? Really hope someone ends up running into one of these. But if that 100-pound fish is in the water, I can pull as hard as I want, and I'm only going to feel probably 15 pounds of pressure. As soon as that 100-pound fish comes up to the surface, if I keep pulling, you're going to get 100 pounds of pressure right away, and that's why you get that big pop and all that stuff. And so when those tarpon jump, I'm a big fan of always fighting with my rod tip down. And you can bend your rod tip down and right or down and left, right? But keep that rod a little bend in the rod and keep your rod tip down. And then if your guy does have you lift up and you're fighting a fish normal like this, right? And he jumps. This is why they say bow to the tarpon or put your line down, right? Is watch what happens when Farron's hand comes up. See that little pop right there? All this line coming tight off the water, it's going to give you a big pop. And a lot of times, most of the time, it's a recipe for losing a tarpon. So what I want you to think about is this fly line has a lot of weight to it, right? Especially if it's on the water, you're gonna have a lot more drag along the surface. So when that big tarpon comes up or a big fish, all you need to do is put your line down on the water, okay? And the line on the water is gonna cause enough drag that big fish, while they're up thrashing, should keep him on. And as soon as he goes down deep again, we are gonna get right back at it. And we are gonna pull hard. The number one thing that I've learned about tarpon is we need to break their spirits, you guys. And so your guides, if that tarpon is moving left, you are going to pull towards his tail. Okay, you're going to change directions and pull right. If the tarpon turns and starts going right, you're going to try to break his spirit the opposite of where he's facing. And there are different scenarios. Like if a guide sees a hook in a certain side of his mouth, he may, tell you to fight him on a certain side for the whole time and stuff like that. But that's just a general perspective as we are trying to break their spirit, you guys. And if you start letting up on tarpon at any point, they're gonna almost revive themselves, and you can almost count the timer back over, right? That's why these guys, they say that they fight these 100-pound plus tarpon for hours, some of them, or an hour plus. The best guides in the world that land them, they do it in 20 to 30 minutes because they break their will. And so that's the number one thing, you guys, that I wanted to show you is if you're bending the top of your rod, you're actually not putting hardly any pressure at all to them. And so it's a tool as well, right? Because when you hook up on a permit, you don't want to be putting a lot of pressure on them, right? So that's where it is important to get the tip of your rod bent up and keep a good bend in the tip of your rod when you have a permit and bonefish and some of those other fish that get really hot really fast. Yeah, and so you can keep them on, right? Whereas if I'm trying to fight him like this, he's gonna shake. All right, quit. Yeah. So if you're tight lining a fish with like 16-pound meter, and you're bending the bottom part of your rod, you can put more than 16 pounds of pressure on that fly pretty easy if you're not bending the rod. But if you guys are bending the top of your rod, I'd almost guarantee you cannot put more than 10 pounds of pressure to that fly. Okay, so that's something, keep it in your mind that, hey, once you hook up on Mr. Bonefish or Mr. Permit, keep the big bend in the tip of your rod, and there's a very small chance that you're gonna break that fish off at that point, unless you point towards them and boom, now you're straight line.
And you don't try to cut them out.
Your guide will instruct you what to do, but with a permit, they usually, by the time they eat it, they are running. A lot of the times, you guys, what I've seen is these fish will eat, and they're gonna tail on your fly. They're gonna eat it, and then they're gonna back off. And if they're with another couple fish, a lot of the times they're just gonna go school back up with them. And you may have 20, 30 feet of running line out. And a lot of guys are worried about putting it on their reels, and then all of a sudden he gets there, he finds out what's going on, and he's doing 40 miles an hour across the flat. Just don't worry about all the extra slack, you guys. He's gonna pull it out eventually. Just stay tight to him. Keep the rod bent. A lot of the times those permit will come back towards you too, so get ready to strip, keep a good bend, and then when he gets hot, this is the biggest tip I can give you, is the way to clear a line, if you have a bunch of slack line here, is if we pinch too hard or too little, we're gonna get this line doing this jumping thing here, and it can wrap around your reel and all that stuff. So the best way to clear a line is we're gonna put the hook in them, right? We're gonna set up, and then what you wanna do is move your hand away from your reel. If your hand's here, big chance of it jumping up here. Move your hand away from your reel, and slight pressure. With slight pressure, you can dump 60 feet of slack line and it's not gonna jump and all that stuff. So what I'll do is kind of maybe show you guys the amount of pressure here, but it's not hard and it's not soft. You just want a good light amount of pressure, and this line will clear nice and easy with your hand straight left away from your reel, or right if you're the left. So does that stuff kind of help a little bit? It's just some food for thought. The tip of the rod doesn't have a lot of pressure. If you're really trying to break a fish's spirit, we're going to use this bottom fourth of the rod and keep that thing bent.
How do you hold when you're waiting? You said you hold everything in your right hand.
Yes, it's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to cover. Right. So let's say one. deck, you guys, if you guys start with not much fly line out like this, it's really hard to load this first cast, or the first back cast, right? And a lot of these shots that you might see, are gonna happen very quick, and you're not gonna have more time than, you know, 1 or maybe 2 false casts. So what I like to do, you guys, I'm gonna stretch my hand out like this. And this is about the minimum amount of line that I'm gonna start with here. If it's really windy, or if I have a bunch of coral and stuff like that below me, where you can't have extra line on the water, this is my minimum length. Okay, and what that allows me to do is, like I said, a lot of people will start like this.
That's how I do it.
Okay, and you're gonna drop the fly, come into a back cast, try to hold some line. This is actually how I start right here. So I'm gonna pitch my fly line here, and then pitch my fly here. Because at this point, you guys, you can do all the same stuff. It's much quicker to get your hand on your hauling line. And I'll show you this at some point here. You can drop the fly and just back cast and reach down and haul, rather than doing this where you have to drop the fly, drop this line, pick it up here, and haul all in the same thing. It's a much quicker technique. So we're gonna pinch the line here, pinch the line here. This is my minimum length. That's about say almost a full rod length of that colored line. Now if you're out, and what I typically like to do is more so about 10 feet of length like this. And this is only available, right, when you don't have a bunch of wind and coral nasty bottom. And this extra 3 feet of line is gonna save you 1 false cast right there. And just that extra couple feet of line, it's gonna be that much heavier as you drop your fly and pulling them back. You're gonna basically be able to get your flies out to 25, 30 feet on one cast instead of 15 feet. And that makes a big difference on being able to fish or not. And some of the stuff, if you guys get clouds, wind, that kind of stuff, it's gonna be very hard to see fish, and it's gonna happen right here, right? And I think that was probably the last point that I did talk about a little bit last night. Is if your guy's excited and say cast, 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 it's not because that fish is way out there, you guys. It's because he's probably right here at your feet. Everybody's all looking at where Captain is over there and stuff like that. Look at where this shirt is first, and then move your eyes out, and that'll help you spot a few more throughout the week here.
What about the hook file? The file for the hook. When do you use that?
Great. So more so for permit bugs, I would say, than anything.
Permit?
Yeah, you want your permit bugs super sticky. And what I do, you guys, is I'm gonna take. Oh, I don't need to file it.
I thought, yeah, I
Shouldn't.
I did.
So you're gonna take your hook and drag it across the top of. You see how it's hanging up on my fingernail?
It'll actually scratch.
It'll scratch it. I have 3 scratches on there now. If it doesn't hang up or scratch, it's not sharp enough. So what you do with a hook file.
Oh, now you want it?
So I only go away from me, okay? And this is something. So I'll take the hook and I'm gonna face it away from me. I'm gonna give it 1 brush on the right, 1 brush on the top, 1 brush on the left, and it's always away from me. Don't come back towards you while you're sharpening it if you do have a sharpener. And what that'll do is it's gonna put that really good little point back on there, and it's the difference of some people think fish hooking themselves or not, you know. So have that fly, drag it across your thumb, and what it'll see is it'll stick, and then it'll cause little grooves along your finger as well. So I just taught you guys everything I know about this stuff, man. So if there's any tips, I know a lot of people have different experiences. I'd be happy to learn as well, man. I'd love you to share them.
I would say go barefoot on the front of the boat, so if you're stepping on your line, you can tell. Because when you're wearing flip-flops, you can't.
Yeah, that is nice, for sure. And then I'd encourage you to try this. It's gonna sound funky at first, but get your feet all the way up to the nose of the boat and wrap your toes over the edge. And if you do that, you're gonna feel 10 times more stable than if you're trying to.
So when you're holding the fly with 10 feet of fly line out, you got line stripped out also?
Yep. That was the last thing I didn't cover. I'm so glad you brought that up. Okay. How to stack line in the boat. First thing you guys need to do when you get out there is establish direction, establish your meters. And then what I want you guys to do is when you're establishing meters, make your longest cast you possibly can. Throw it out there as far as you can. You look at your guy and say, how many meters? And you say, 12 or whatever, you know, but throw as far as you're comfortable out. And then what you guys want to do, if I just pulled my line out like this, you guys, and tried to cast it, you would end up with a bunch of tangles and stuff like that. Okay? But if you threw the fly line all the way out as far as you could, and then you stack it backwards like this, it's not going to tangle on you nearly as bad. And what I would recommend is throw the furthest cast you can. If you're by yourself on a single, go back to the rail where that hole dives down, okay? And I like to stack my line down into the hole so it's not on the deck, okay? I'm gonna put all my lines stacked down in there, just like this. It's gonna be down inside the hole of the boat. Now I got about my 10 feet of line out. I'm gonna walk up on the edge of the boat and I'm gonna wrap my toes over the edge. I got my fly line out and I am ready to make my cast, okay? And this stuff right here, however much line you have back there, if you're in a double boat, help each other out with that. You know, if someone hooks up, don't be afraid to help your partner clear some line. Shit hits the fan, man. It gets west around here. And, you know, just do what you can with it, man. There was a fish last year, you guys, where I went in, or 2 years ago, bow and arrow casted a fish. Probably a 10 to 15 pound tarpon. He jumps up, watch that sunscreen. They don't want that on the carpet. So the fish jumps over a mangrove, goes directly under the boat. My line is wrapped up on a mangrove, right? There's no way I wasn't gonna break this rod because it was literally my tip of a rod was moving towards the mangroves. The fish went underneath the boat and back out towards the ocean. Threw my rod to my partner. I reached down and grabbed the line and pulled that sucker back and hand lined him in. But I mean, the way to catch a fish isn't always gonna be beautiful, guys. So just remember that, all right? That's all I know, guys.
Thank you, Curtis.
Yeah, absolutely, man.